It's Charles Barkley with Wayfair. It's outdoor season, and my patio setup better be ready to play. That's where Wayfair wins. Patio seating, umbrellas, and grills, all delivered fast and easy. Shop wayfair.ca now.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Breaking news. Considered. The Elias Macco Show. News Talk Radio. CJAD 800.
Trudy Mason sitting in for Elias, and we are talking about the announcement by U.S. President Donald Trump via social media late yesterday that he would delay implementation of his latest round of tariffs by 3 days because he says there is a deal in the offing. He referred to, taking care of the paperwork, and I guess that means getting everything down on paper in a way that both parties agree. Our Prime Minister has said substantial progress has been made, although there is important work still to be done. So he seems to be a little bit more cautious. Donald Trump mentioned in his social media post that the revival of the Keystone XL pipeline may be part of the deal. Here to help us understand what this 3-day delay may prove to mean, Fen Osler Hampson, Chancellor's Professor at Carleton University, co-chair of the expert group on Canada-U.S. relations. Professor, welcome back.
Good to be with you.
What do you make of this announcement by Donald Trump that he is delaying the tariffs by 3 days?
Well, a tweet from the president saying that there's a deal in the offing is perhaps overly optimistic. But, we should expect it from a president who, he said to the Iranians or in his conflict there many times, yes, we have a deal when there wasn't a deal. Now, I'm not saying this is the same story. But, the devil is in the details, and there are three files that are going to decide whether there is, in fact, agreement. One is autos. If we can get what appears to be on offer, 15% tariff relief scaled to U.S. content only and get that number down, that may be the basis for a deal on supply management. Important to note here that the Americans aren't seeking to dismantle supply management. They want a reallocation of existing quotas. I suspect there is a deal there, but how that lands in Quebec with a premier who has, publicly said, don't touch this one, partly because she's going into an election, and then, of course, softwood lumber. Where the baseline tariff of 35% has been hitting BC producers really hard. And it's pretty clear from everything we've heard, the Americans have excluded softwood lumber from these talks pretty much entirely. So
there is a possibility that BC won't be very happy. Our premier here in Quebec has said that dairy is a red line. Although it's not clear whether Christine Frechette is only talking about the dismantling, as you say, of supply management, which it may not be the goal of the U.S. Do you think the deal would be sellable here in Quebec if it just meant an adjustment of the quotas?
Yeah, because, when we're talking about an adjustment of the quotas, it's really, shifting the quotas from the producers, to, some of the big stores that, want to bring milk prices down and dairy prices down by getting, cheaper American product on the shelves. Quebec consumers will definitely be winners when it comes to lower prices. Again, how much of that quota will be reallocated? I think the bottom line is the government is going to say supply management stays in place, and that, is a defensible proposition, even for the premier, because the issue has always been the allocation of those quotas to American producers, and they have been falling well short of those quotas. Exports have definitely increased from the United States, but not at the levels that are even contemplated in the existing agreement.
Tell us a little bit more about softwood lumber, because I think that's much less on the radar of Quebecers, because it seems pretty remote from us. Is BC likely to turn thumbs down on a deal if it doesn't see some relief?
Oh, I think so. Premier Eby, who is also, looking at his own reelection. But, the softwood lumber dispute, did not begin with the Trump administration. It's decades old. It has to do with stumpage fees and the fact that, our softwood industry, gets a pretty healthy subsidy from Ottawa. The Americans, have imposed, it's actually a variable tariff rate structure. The duties depend on, the company that is, they're very company specific, but they average anywhere from sort of 15 to 35%. Under Section 232 tariffs, there was an additional 10% blanket tariff that was imposed on softwood timber and lumber imports into the United States. So, I think, in any negotiation like this, somebody's going to get thrown under the bus. And, I think it's more likely to be British Columbia, and I think it's more likely that we're going to have a very unhappy premier coming out of this. But at the end of the day, it's vote-rich Ontario and Quebec, and obviously key sectors there. And, we're not just talking about, tariff relief. Aluminum and steel are two other important sectors as well. There may be some relief there too, and that certainly affects Quebec producers. But the threatened, $28 billion tariff that Trump said he would impose if there isn't a deal would, as we all know, hit small and medium-sized enterprises in Quebec and Ontario really, really hard. So, if you're sort of facing that with, trying to, put entire sectors of the economy at risk, and that includes, by the way, autos. If it's lumber versus autos versus an even worse fate if we get into a major trade war with the Americans, something's got to give, and I suspect it will be lumber.
And what is your crystal ball telling you about whether this 3-day delay will, in fact, lead to an agreement?
Well, I think there is an agreement. They're still, doing some of the fine tuning of it in terms of, getting a piece of paper there. As Lisa Raitt said earlier on your show, Prime Minister Carney, who has been, very careful to consult with the provinces, is obviously putting those details in front of the provincial premiers, asking them if they can live with it. And I think that's very important politically. He does need that backstop. Because it's not going to be a perfect deal. But if, the majority of Canada's premiers can say this is something we can live with, then that puts him in a much stronger position. So those 3 days, the so-called pause period is really to build support in the country, as much support as he can get for what's currently on the table. And, I suspect he's also saying, this is the best we can do. The alternative is really getting into a major tariff war with the Americans, where Canadians stand to lose a lot more than they're going to lose by accepting the terms of this deal.
Professor, thank you very much for your time this morning.
My pleasure.
Fen Osler Hampson, Chancellor's Professor at Carleton University, co-chair of the expert group on Canada-U.S. relations.
It's Charles Barkley with Wayfair. It's outdoor season, and my patio set up, they'll be ready to play. That's where Wayfair wins. Patio seating, umbrellas, and grills, all delivered fast and easy. Shop wayfair.ca now.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
iHeartRadio is throwing it back
2010s, the decade.
to the days of huge hits and unforgettable anthems. A non-stop stream of the biggest and best.
Drake, Rihanna, Beyonce, Katy, Gaga, The Weeknd,
And more. All your decade-defining favorites, all in one place.
Hi, it's Katy Perry.
Hey, it's Bruno Mars.
This is Kesha.
Find 2010's The Decade on the free iHeartRadio app. Preset the station so it's always one tap away. Debate, interviews, and breaking news. The Elias Macco Show. News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
Trudy Mason sitting in, and I wanted to do this topic because I got a call from a listener, a woman in her 80s, who was scammed big time. To this day, still doesn't know how the scammers got her information, got into her accounts, made her life hell for a while, hijacked her phone accounts, got into bank accounts, purchases, just deep, what she kept saying was a deep scam. And she says that among her peers, almost everybody has a story about being scammed, either in person by somebody who comes to your door, or maybe a caregiver, a service provider, or because they picked up the phone and someone fooled them into thinking they were somebody that they weren't. And she says that people are so vulnerable. More education, more public education needs to be done. So, to that end, to tell us what the latest is in a myriad of scams, because, there's investment scams, there are romance scams, fake calls from the alleged bank, phishing texts, AI-generated voices, on and on and on. It seems there's no end to it. We welcome CJAD 800's tech analyst, Carmi Levy. Carmi, good morning.
Good morning, Trudy. So good to be with you.
And you must have heard stories about people being scammed 6 ways from Sunday as well.
I have had victims come to my house and knock on my door to tell me they've been victimized. And in at least one case, the woman, she was an elderly lady. She lives just down the street from me. She knows what I do for a living. And she told me that she was afraid to tell anyone in her family because she was ashamed.
Oh.
And so she wanted to speak to me first. So this is the kind of thing that people think happens to someone else. But the reality is we're all potentially victims. And at some point, we will all be victimized, and all of our information is out there. And if we haven't been targeted yet, look to your left, look to your right. Chances are both of those people have been. So this is rampant, and we tend to think that it targets certain demographic groups, like maybe, my mom or my grandmother. But in reality, all ages, even young, kids who are supposedly digitally savvy, they're being targeted too. They're being fooled by individuals who are pretending to be legitimate, banks, government agencies, employers, their school, but in reality, they're just scammers trying to get information and money.
Well, our listener mentioned that, there are a few low-tech ways to protect yourself. For example, what she said is, I'm telling everybody now, do not carry your SIN card in your wallet. Hide it at home. You only need it maybe once or twice a year. You don't need to carry it in your wallet, because if your wallet is stolen or you lose your wallet, that SIN number is key to getting into a lot of places, possibly including setting up new bank accounts and so on. So that's a low-tech thing to do. What are some of the tech things to do, Carmi, that people can protect themselves with?
Well, because most of these fraud attempts are based on phone calls, email addresses, or text messages, the first thing we need to do is, as soon as our phone rings or we get a notification of a message, believe nothing. Just assume that call, email, or text is fraudulent by default. And then it's on you to verify that they are who they say they are. So, for example, my phone rang yesterday. It was from a telecommunications provider who, interestingly, I don't do business with, but they claim that I do. I looked at the call display and it had the name of the company on it. I won't say it because I don't, it could be anyone. But it clearly wasn't them. And if I had called that number back, they would have shrugged their shoulders and said no. So, my first thing is if they're calling saying we can offer you a better deal, your answer should be, I'm going to end this call and I'm going to call directly to see if this is really on the up and up. Same thing with email. I got an email this morning, for this incredible job offer from someone. I looked her up online. I hovered over the email address. It was not from the company that she claimed that she was from. And then I did a quick Google search, and as it turns out, she was not, she no longer worked for the company. She was a legitimate person, but she no longer worked for the company. So obviously someone had grabbed her information and used it for a fraud. So slow it down, believe nothing, do your homework, and seize control of that message so that they're not calling you, you're calling them, you're going onto the web, you're using your information to verify, they are in fact who they claim themselves to be.
And Carmi, one of the things I think that people who are less tech savvy, because you were talking about the shame involved, you're so ashamed if you were scammed, you don't want to tell anybody. I think a lot of people are ashamed to admit that they're not very tech savvy. But what they probably should be doing is asking a trusted contact who is tech savvy to say, I got this email. Do you think it's scammy? I won't reply if you tell me that it's likely a scam. And get that help. Admit that you need the help. Get the help before you reply to anything, because sometimes these scams prey on fear. Scams that target immigrants, for example. You're going to lose your status in Canada if you don't reply within the next, 10 minutes. This type of thing, it preys on fear. And I think that we have to admit when we need help in some cases.
Absolutely, and we have conversations, within our family unit. We talk to our kids, and we talk to members of our extended family around the kitchen table. We all have a plan. We're always sharing what the sort of the latest things that we're seeing, the latest threats that we're seeing. We have a code word in our family, and we share that code word so that if we get a call, because artificial intelligence is making a lot of these frauds incredibly realistic. In many cases, they can clone your kid's voice. And all of a sudden you hear your kid saying, "Mom, I've been arrested. What should I do? You need to send me money." And, so you call your kid or you ask them, well, what's the code word? And if they don't have the code word, clearly it's a fraud, but they used AI to clone your kid's voice. And so, have a network. Talk about it within your friends' sort of family group, so that you're all aware of it, and that we call it a no judgment policy. You can call me anytime with a question or a concern, or if you think you're being targeted. No questions asked, no judgments. I will help in any way that I can. And families need to do that. Friend groups need to do that, so that we know that we're not facing this alone. If your gut is telling you something is off, you should have kind of be surrounded by resources that you can reach out to bounce it off of, and chances are they will tell you, yep, this is fraudulent, back away.
And I think that's so important, Carmi, what you're saying about having a no judgment, no questions approach if someone says, I've got a real problem. Because I think sometimes people get themselves into a real pickle. For example, going to porn sites that are dodgy, or sharing intimate photos and then finding out that they're about to be blackmailed. And they're too ashamed to admit that they've fallen into this pit kind of their own doing. They're too embarrassed to admit, yeah, I went to this porn site and we have to be able to say, listen, no shame here, no judgment. You're in trouble. You deserve to get help.
Exactly. And if you are in that position where, you think you don't have options, recognize that you're not the only one who's been targeted in this way. There is no shame in seeking help. Because the alternative is almost unimaginable. And we need to sort of recognize that, fraudsters are becoming ever more creative, and they're using ever more sophisticated technologies to, do things that, that put us at risk even if we don't realize it. And so we need to have, eyes wide open, heads on a swivel. We need to start watching what we share online because, you talked about it in the intro that, they had all this information on me. And that's often because we're sharing on social media, or our data is included in a breach that sort of got out years ago, and now it's sitting out on the open internet. Scammers, this is what they do. They grab that information online, they consolidate it, and then they customize it. So you get a message, and it looks like they know all this information about you. So you think, well, of course it has to be the government, or of course it has to be my insurance company. But in reality, they just got stolen information, or they scraped it from social media. So we have to start adapting our online behaviors to share less, to pull things in, to start asking questions. Should I be putting that on Facebook? Or does that picture of my child going back to school with personal information on it, maybe I should keep that private. Maybe I shouldn't digitize it or share it because that can be used by scammers. That's what they're watching for.
As always, Carmi, thank you for your time.
Appreciate being here. Thanks so much, Trudy.
CTV's tech analyst, Carmi Levy. When we return after the 10:30 update, we'll talk about that EV mandate being dropped without a clear backup plan as yet.
It's Charles Barkley with Wayfair. It's outdoor season, and my patio set up, that'll be ready to play. That's where Wayfair wins. Patio seating, umbrellas, and grills, all delivered fast and easy. Shop wayfair.ca now.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Canadian women are looking for more out of themselves, their businesses, their elected leaders, and the world around them.
And that's why we're thrilled to introduce the Honest Talk podcast.
I'm Jennifer Stewart.
And I'm Catherine Clark. And in this podcast, we interview Canada's most inspiring women.
Entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, politicians, and newsmakers, all at different stages of their journey.
So if you're looking to connect, then we hope you'll join us.
Listen to the Honest Talk podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
The Elias Macco Show, on demand.
On demand. Don't miss a thing.
Find your favorite clips at CJAD800.com and on the free iHeartRadio app.
Well, you might have caught this. You remember, of course, that Canada did set a target of having electric vehicles account for at least 20% of auto sales across Canada this year. That figure up to 100% by 2035. Well, that's gone by the wayside, and nothing yet has replaced it. We'll discuss this with the Electric Mobility Canada organization in a moment.
Your mom told you not to talk back, but we feel very differently. In fact,
we want you to talk back and record your comment
Via the CJAD 800 page on the iHeartRadio app.
another way to have your say on the voice of the community.
News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
It's Charles Barkley with Wayfair. It's outdoor season, and my patio set up, that'll be ready to play. That's where Wayfair wins. Patio seating, umbrellas, and grills, all delivered fast and easy. Shop wayfair.ca now.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Hey, I'm Ruby Carr, the host of the podcast Encore. Check out our brand new episodes featuring music from the show that everyone is reheating as we speak, Heated Rivalry. Join me as I go behind the songs that brought Shane and Elia together. I'll tell you the stories of Feist, My Moon, My Man, Wolf Parade's I'll Believe in Anything, and Tattoo's All the Things She Said, and how they all became a part of this global phenomenon. Stream Encore on iHeartRadio, Crave, or wherever you get your podcasts.
La STM vous souhaite la bienvenue à bord.
Bus, metro, train, drive, in transit is on the Elias Macco Show. CJAD 800.
We have been talking so much trade, U.S. trade and tariffs these days that this little announcement kind of went under the radar. The federal government has decided to repeal its electric vehicle sales mandate. And you'll remember that this set targets for the percentage of new vehicles sold in Canada that must be zero emission. The original rules said 20% of new light-duty vehicle sales should be zero emission by this year, 60% by 2030, 100% by 2035. So that seems to be dead in the water. What is supposed to replace it is new emissions regulations, but they are not in place yet. So there's a little bit of a void, and that is of concern for environmentalists, for proponents of the switch to EVs, and more. We welcome to CJAD 800 Daniel Breton, President and CEO of Electric Mobility Canada. Good morning, Daniel.
Good morning.
Who does your organization represent?
Well, we represent car makers, bus makers, utilities, mining companies, research universities, cities, trade operators, fleet operators. So we have a very broad coalition of industries. So to us, it's also about jobs and GDP. Just to give you an example, I mean, currently we have approximately 130,000 people working in the Canadian EV industry. And according to a report published by EY, we should be between 360 and 600,000 by 2035.
So how much of a concern is this current void with the EV mandate dead and no clear backup plan for emissions?
Well, the concern is very simple. What everybody wants as much as possible is market and policy predictability. And this is what we've been talking about for at least a year and a half since Donald Trump came back to power. And so he's added a lot of uncertainty. So for us to see that the Canadian government himself is adding uncertainty by saying, well, we're killing the EV availability regulation. But what they said a few months ago, because this was no surprise to us that it would kill it, they said that it was going to be replaced by a GHG emission standard with a target, according to Prime Minister Carney himself, is to have 75% electric vehicle sales by 2035. So for us, it gives us a pathway. We can plan accordingly. But now what we learned a few days ago was the fact that they're saying, well, we are killing the sales on regulation, the regulation on sales, but we're not replacing it yet with a regulation on GHG emissions. So for us, that void is very important because we don't know when that will come into effect, if that comes into effect, and how stringent it will be. So all of this uncertainty is creating a problem for investment and jobs.
I think that a lot of folks raised their eyebrows when the government decided to go with a sales side target of 100% by 2025 because they felt that it unfairly 2035, pardon me, because they felt that it unfairly put the burden on the sellers of vehicles at a time when the population was still kind of just getting used to the idea of making the switch to EVs. So I think there might be some people in these quarters quite happy that the EV mandate has gone. Need they be cautious about what will replace it in terms of emissions?
Well, between us, I personally called the federal government and the Quebec government and the BC government last year to tell them to say that we were okay if we were to not ban the sale of gas vehicles by 2035. We said we understand some people are not ready, some people just don't want it. So we said let's take it down a notch because we understand these issues. But right now, what we are seeing with the price of gas that has gone up significantly the past few months, and we don't know when it's going to go back to a lower price, or even if it's going to go back to a lower price. So for us, what the issue is now is that there's so much demand for electric cars around the world that now we're starting to see an issue with supply of electric cars at dealerships across. So while there's more and more demand, the supply is not following up. So the problem for us is that now that we have more demand from Canadians, what the car makers will do first and foremost is send the vehicles to the countries and the jurisdictions where they are the most, I would say, incentivized to send and sell the vehicles. So if we kill the regulation now, which was already announced, and we get it, but we don't replace it with something soon, it means that for the months to come, we might end up having significant delays in deliveries of electric cars. So people will have to keep their gas car and pay for the high price of gas.
Yeah, it doesn't seem there's any winners when we have especially with this void looming over us. By the way, folks, the federal government says consultations on the new tailpipe emission standards will begin in the fall. Daniel Breton, thank you very much for the interview this morning.
My pleasure. Have a good day. Daniel
is with the Electric Mobility Canada organization, where he is president and CEO.
It's Charles Barkley with Wayfair. It's outdoor season, and my patio setup, that'll be ready to play. That's where Wayfair wins. Patio seating, umbrellas, and grills, all delivered fast and easy. Shop wayfair.ca now.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
iHeartRadio is throwing it back.
2010s, the decade.
To the days of huge hits and unforgettable anthems. A non-stop stream of the biggest and best.
Drake, Rihanna, Beyonce, Katie, Gaga, The Weeknd,
and more. All your decade-defining favorites, all in one place.
Hi, it's Katy Perry.
Hey, it's Bruno Mars.
This is Kesha.
Find 2010's The Decade on the free iHeartRadio app. Preset the station so it's always one tap away. Time is valuable. Thanks for spending your morning with us. The Elias Macko Show on News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
Some new number crunching by the Canadian Taxpayers Federation is indicating that in not too long, a matter of a few years, about half of what you pay at the pump for your gas will be made up of various taxes. Here to share the calculations with us, Nicolas Gagnon, Quebec Director for the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Good morning, Nicolas.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Walk us through the numbers. What are we paying right now every time we put a liter of gas in our car in terms of taxes?
Yes, well, we published yesterday our gas tax, our 28th gas tax honesty report, where we expose every year the number of taxes that Canadians have to pay every time they go to the gas station. And so yesterday, what we exposed is basically that the Montrealers are actually the one who pays the highest amount of tax every time they fill their fuel tank. And among those many taxes, we have obviously the provincial fuel tax of 19.2 cents. We also have the carbon tax in Quebec that we're the only one to pay ever since April 1st, 2025 of 9.4 cents a liter. We also have a transit tax in Montreal only. It doesn't affect the rest of Quebecers, so that's 3 cents a liter. And also we have a fuel tax, fuel a fuel regulation that is passed over by the federal government that is approximately 6 or 7 cents a liter. And then on top of all that, we had also the sales tax from both the federal and the Quebec government. And it's so all that comes to 61.4 cents a liter, or 35% of what we pay every time we go to the gas station. And that also excludes, of course, the federal excise tax that has been suspended on April 20th, and that should also come back on September 8th. So that's going to be an additional 10 cents by Labor Day.
Oh, well, that's fun and worth looking forward to. You know, the one that kind of shocked me, because we often talk about how motorists get dinged every time they tank up for public transit. And you think about, oh, yeah, there's a transit tax rolled in there somewhere, but it's all very, fuzzy about. And when I read 3 cents out of every liter is to go to public transit, I was surprised by that. I thought it was, 0.5 or, maybe a penny or something like that. It's 3 cents a liter. I drive out of my way to a different gas station down the road to save 3 cents a liter. And it just seems to me that's just one more thing that's aggravating people at the gas pumps.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and also the fact that we have seen the tax on our car registration increase by a good percentage over the last years does not help at all at this point, and it's also due to fund public transit systems.
Yeah, right. So we're at 35% right now. 35% of what we pay for our gas is going to various taxes to various governments. What is your projection for what it will be by 2030?
Yes, so by 2030, it may very much increase to 47 or even 50% of what we pay in the gas station, which will be taxes for either the provincial or federal government. And that is mainly due to two taxes that will, well, three taxes that will make a comeback or will increase over time. So we have obviously the federal excise tax, which will come back by Labor Day, so next month. That will add another 10 cents. That will bring us closer to the 40% mark. But also there is the carbon tax in Quebec that is set to increase over time. Contrary to the federal government consumer carbon tax that is now gone, this tax is basically aligned with the Quebec cap and trade system that is shared with California. And the projections from the Quebec government and then also from the Californian state is saying that basically that tax will increase because of the price of carbon. And so for now it's 9.4 cents a liter, but by 2030 projections were saying it could decrease up to 23 cents a liter. So that that carbon tax itself will more than double by the end of the decade according to those projections. And also we have the clean fuel regulation from the federal government that is currently, like I mentioned, it's at approximately between 6 to 7 cents. And it will also increase up to 16 cents by the end of the decade as well. So we have those two. We have one that is very much known as a carbon tax in Quebec. That is, I would say, it's the most unpopular tax that we are currently paying in a gas station. But there is also this other clean fuel regulation from the federal government that is kind of a hidden carbon tax itself, and it will increase over time.
What is the Taxpayers Federation looking for then? Do you feel, for example, that the Fed should not bring back the excise tax as planned at Labor Day, or do you feel that Quebec should scrap its version of the carbon tax?
Well, yeah, actually, we want both. In that case, we really want both of those government to. In the first case, for the federal government, we want them to maintain that suspension for the rest of the year, if not forever. And there's definitely ways for that. If the federal government decides to cut its own spending, it's important to mention that this hole in the federal coffer would be approximately $7 billion a year. If we look at the cost of this current measure between April and September, so over the full year, if we suspend the federal excise tax, it represents $7 billion that Canadians could keep in their pockets. Obviously, with a federal government with a hard time balancing its budget, we expect them to be able to do the other part of the accounting process and to also cut in spendings to avoid increasing the deficit. Now, for the Quebec government, we hope to actually get Madame Fréchette or anyone from the other provincial parties, since we are going into elections very soon, that we hope that they engage into the discussion, because many polls in Quebec have shown that most Quebecers want to get rid of the carbon tax, and yet there's only one political party right now that seems to want to get rid of it. which is the Conservative Party of Quebec from Éric Duhaime. So, but we want other parties to engage into the discussions. For example, Premier Frichette, not so long ago, decided to reimburse farmers on the carbon tax, which proves that if the carbon tax is bad for farmers, it's definitely bad for truckers and for any other Quebecers. So we just want her to basically double down on that idea, or to other political parties to go forward with getting rid of that carbon tax once and for all.
Can the cap and trade system survive without that money coming in?
Sadly, no, except if we want to maintain ourselves in a situation of deficit, because what's going on is that every revenues from that cap and trade is going to the Green Fund, or the Fund for Electrification and Climate Change, and that fund itself is basically used to distribute subsidies to many businesses, or for the Drive Green program and stuff like that. So obviously, if we maintain those programs alive, it's not going to be good for public finance. So what we propose, in order to get rid of the carbon tax and to make it in a neutral cost way, so that we don't increase our deficit, is basically to get rid of the carbon tax on one hand, to give a relief to every Quebecers, but also to get rid of the Green Fund itself. And over 2024, 2025, that very fund received up to $1.3 billion in subsidy, in revenues that were then used in subsidies. So obviously, to avoid increasing the deficit, we have to get rid of both in that case.
Nicolas Gagnon, thank you for running the numbers for us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
Nicolas Gagnon, Quebec Director for the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. We have more trade talk coming up. Vashi Capellos, host of the Vashi Capello Show you hear on CJAD, will be joining us about her thoughts and how she's going to be following this story on her show this morning. That's all coming up after the 11 o'clock news.
Renopco does it all, including expert plumbing services. From renovations to plumbing, trust one team, one name you know. Call Renopco today or visit RenopcoPlumbing.com.
It's Charles Barkley with Wayfair. It's outdoor season, and my patio setup better be ready to play. That's where Wayfair wins. Patio seating, umbrellas, and grills, all delivered fast and easy. Shop wayfair.ca now.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
iHeartRadio is throwing it back.
2010s, the decade.
To the days of huge hits and unforgettable anthems. A non-stop stream of the biggest and best.
Drake, Rihanna, Beyonce, Katie, Gaga, The Weeknd,
and more. All your decade-defining favorites, all in one place.
Hi, it's Katy Perry.
Hey, it's Bruno Mars.
This is Kesha.
Find 2010's The Decade on the free iHeartRadio app. Preset the station so it's always one tap away.
You're listening to the voice of Montreal.
News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
An iHeartRadio station.
Canadian women are looking for more out of themselves, their businesses, their elected leaders, and the world around them.
And that's why we're thrilled to introduce the Honest Talk podcast.
I'm Jennifer Stewart.
And I'm Catherine Clark. And in this podcast, we interview Canada's most inspiring women.
Entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, politicians, and newsmakers, all at different stages of their journey.
So if you're looking to connect, then we hope you'll join us.
Listen to the Honest Talk podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts.